If you discovered that your own employees were scamming customers within the very system you built, what would you do? On a grey Monday morning, as the showroom windows of Titan Motors were still veiled in a thin layer of dew, and the neon lights had just flickered to life across the damp tile floor, a middle-aged man stepped out of an old, faded Corolla. His salt and pepper hair, the faint wrinkles around his eyes, worn jeans, flannel shirt, and a baseball cap pulled low, nearly covering his eyes. He looked no different from the hundreds of construction workers who passed through this dealership each week. And that was exactly what he intended. No one inside the showroom recognized the man as Ethan Roy, the founder of Titan Motors. 15 years ago, he built the company from a dusty lot in the suburbs into a respected dealership network, stretching across 3 states. For the past 2 years, Ethan had handed daily operations of each location to regional managers, while he focused on expanding post-sale services. But recently, the reports landing on his desk no longer matched what customers were actually experiencing. Sales remained strong, but customer satisfaction ratings had taken a hit. Some praised the product, while others complained about mandatory optional fees, confusing policies, and aggressive sales tactics. Most troubling of all were the angry reviews from loyal customers who once trusted the Titan name. Ethan couldn't sit still any longer. He decided to investigate, in a way no one would expect. Disguised as a modest customer, he became Raymond Ellis, an independent mechanic with $35,000 in savings, looking to buy his first work truck. As Raymond, he entered the dealership right at opening time, while the coffee machine still hissed at the front desk and employees laughed and chatted, preparing for the day. But Ethan's eyes immediately caught something unsettling. Above the glass-paneled mezzanine, a sharply dressed man stood with his arms folded, his cold gaze slicing through every customer who walked in. That was Marcus Vale, the newly appointed sales manager, 6 months into the job. Ethan had heard his name, but never met him. His first impression, calculating. While Ethan continued to take in the room, a bright young salesman appeared beside him, flashing a well-rehearsed smile. "Morning, sir. I'm Billy. Can I help you find anything today?" Ethan returned a weary smile in character, his voice intentionally hoarse. "Name's Ray. I work construction, looking for a reliable truck. Budget's around 35 grand. Billy nodded enthusiastically. "Then you've come to the right place. Our heavy-duty lineup is exactly what you need." They began walking between rows of gleaming vehicles under the showroom lights. Ethan carefully watched how Billy pitched the features, how he highlighted the truck's strengths, but skillfully skimmed over questions involving costs. When they stopped in front of a silver Ford F-150, one of the dealership's top sellers, Ethan casually asked, "How much for this one, son?" Billy replied quickly, "This one's 37, but that includes the Titan Elite Protection Package. Towing support, lifetime coverage, paperwork processing. All bundled in, sir." Ethan's heart skipped. The Titan Elite package was supposed to be optional. Customers had the right to decline it. Throughout Titan's history, Ethan had emphasized transparency as a core value. And now, his own staff was presenting it as a mandatory charge. He kept his face blank, playing the role of a curious but unsuspecting buyer, nodding as though he were seriously considering it. But in his mind, every warning bell had gone off. Before him stood a sleek showroom, polished trucks, steady foot traffic. But beneath the surface, something was beginning to rot. And Ethan knew this was just a thin layer of ice covering a far deeper problem he had to uncover soon. Ethan sat down at the customer lounge contract table, across from Billy, who was trying to hide the slight tremble in his hands as he entered data into the system. The computer screen displayed the cost breakdown, and just as Ethan had anticipated, the total had crept up from $37,000 to nearly $41,200, padded with a list of add-on fees Billy had never clearly explained. Ethan asked, "What's this processing fee about, son?" Billy hesitated, his eyes darting toward Marcus Vale's glass office at the far end of the showroom. But before he could answer, a hoarse voice rose from the adjacent table, causing Ethan to pause mid-sentence. "This isn't right. My wife and I have counted every dollar for the past 2 years." A middle-aged man, Gerald Patterson, stood across from another employee, gripping a thick stack of papers. His face was pale, eyes hollow, and from the bundle of documents, a small photo slipped to the floor. 3 smiling children gathered around a homemade birthday cake. Ethan realized this wasn't just a dispute over fees. This was a man's real life, his hope and his heartbreak crumbling in front of him. Marcus Vale emerged from his office as if he had been waiting for just the right moment. With slicked back hair and a perfectly tailored dark suit, he approached Gerald and gently placed a hand on his shoulder, feigning concern. "I'm very sorry, Mr. Patterson, but market adjustment fees, extended protection packages, and service charges were all clearly outlined in the terms you signed." Gerald's voice trembled. "Josh told us the total was $32,000. All the paperwork. Marcus cut him off. "Josh no longer works here. And in business, what matters is not the promise, but the signature." Ethan clenched his jaw, watching quietly. The contract Marcus held was dated that morning, the ink still fresh. And Ethan knew they had been reprinted, replacing the originals made after a verbal agreement. Gerald tried to stay composed, but when he mentioned his oldest daughter was preparing for college, his voice cracked. "If I lose this truck, I lose my job. If I lose my job, I can't pay for her tuition." Marcus offered a cold smirk. "You have 2 options. Pay the additional amount by the end of the week or cancel the contract. But if you cancel, you forfeit your $5,000 deposit." Ethan's hand clenched beneath the table. This wasn't a mistake. It was a trap, expertly designed, and Marcus was the orchestrator at its center. But Ethan couldn't reveal himself yet. He needed more, not just one victim, but a complete picture of how deeply Titan Motors was being corrupted from within. As Gerald walked away, shoulders hunched, eyes hollow, Ethan whispered to himself, "No one else is going to suffer like this. No more families." And in that moment, he knew. The game had changed. The afternoon air in the showroom was thick, as if even the sunlight filtering through the glass hesitated to fully illuminate the space where transaction after transaction hid layers of deceit. Ethan remained seated at the table with Billy, maintaining the steady tone of a customer caught between confusion and surprise. "I don't quite understand. Is this Titan protection package mandatory?" Billy hesitated for a second, his eyes darting toward the glass-walled office where Marcus was still speaking with another employee, his expression sharp, his posture that of someone pulling strings from an invisible stage. The young man leaned toward the computer screen and lowered his voice as if afraid someone might overhear. "Not really. But if a customer doesn't buy it, they usually get denied financing or pushed into accepting a lower trade-in value." Ethan leaned back slightly, his eyes scanning for reactions. "And who came up with that rule?" Billy swallowed hard. "Marcus. We have to follow his strategic sales system. He calls it a strategy, but it's just a trap, sir." Ethan discreetly activated the voice recorder in his shirt pocket, his face betraying nothing. The young man seemed to have just been waiting for someone to give him permission to speak. "You see," Billy continued, "we're told to start with a low quote. Make the customer feel like they've landed a great deal. But once they get to the contract, the extras start rolling in. Processing fees, protection plans, extended warranties, market value adjustments. All things the customer should have the right to decline." Ethan raised an eyebrow. "And what happens if you refuse to go along with it?" The answer came quickly, with an edge of bitterness. "You get the dead shifts, early Sunday mornings or weekday afternoons. No traffic, no commissions." His voice trembled as he mentioned a colleague named Josh, the only one who ever dared to quote honestly, and who had been let go immediately after filing a complaint about Marcus. Josh was the one who sold Mr. Gerald his truck this morning. He was let go the day after, officially for not aligning with business strategy. But we all knew the real reason. Ethan took a deep breath. Every word from Billy felt like a nail being driven into the coffin of the trust he had once placed in the system he built. Glancing out into the showroom, he saw a young couple being guided through a sale by another employee. The salesman was all smiles, breezing through the specs and moving quickly to the loan terms, repeating the same phrase Ethan had just heard from Billy. "If you don't choose the protection package, the bank may reconsider your financing." The couple nodded hesitantly, the husband's hand resting protectively on his pregnant wife's belly, unaware they had just walked into a trap. Ethan stood, pretending he needed to use the restroom, but instead he wandered the showroom. At the finance desk, 2 employees were chatting in a half-joking tone. "That guy was a treat, grinning as he signed the papers. Didn't even notice we gifted him the platinum warranty." Light laughter followed. Ethan felt like he was walking through a factory of deception, each step in the process engineered to extract a little more money from the customer, without them even realizing it. Back at the table, he looked at Billy. "How long do you think this has been going on?" Billy stared at his hands, his index finger tapping nervously on the edge of the table. "Since Marcus got promoted. Everything changed after that. We just sell the cars. We don't get to choose the rules." Ethan nodded slowly and placed a firm hand on the young man's shoulder, saying nothing more. But in his mind, the pieces were falling into place, forming a picture he could no longer ignore. It was time to flip the board. Late in the afternoon, as the number of customers dwindled and the lights in the showroom softened, casting a quieter mood than usual, Ethan, still in the role of Raymond, gently set down the pen and spoke in his gravelly voice. "Before I sign, I just want to ask about some of these fees. If you don't mind, could I speak with the manager?" Billy hesitated for a moment, then nodded. "Sure. I'll let Mr. Marcus know." Through the glass office, Ethan saw Marcus look up, a flicker of annoyance crossing his face, before it quickly morphed into a welcoming smile. "Please come in," he said, his tone polite but assessing, like a man sizing up something whose value he had yet to determine. Marcus's office was meticulously decorated. Ebony wood, rich brown leather, walls lined with framed photos of him posing with VIP clients. Ethan took a seat, staying in character as Raymond, and spoke earnestly. "I'm not too good with paperwork. Just want to make sure I'm not being pushed into buying something I don't need." Marcus smiled, but his eyes didn't. He leaned forward, lowering his voice as though sharing a secret between 2 men. "You're a reasonable guy. Let me be honest, those fees help keep the profit steady. Everyone does it. But if it bothers you, I could make a few adjustments, on one condition: cash only. Think of it as your contribution to keep things running smoothly." Ethan's heart pounded, not out of shock, but from the sheer audacity of the confession. Still, he kept a calm expression, his eyes drifting for a moment toward the phone hidden in his pocket, still recording. "Does the owner know about this?" he asked. Marcus burst into laughter, then shook his head. "The owner? He's busy counting profits in other states. He doesn't know anything. I'm the one who keeps this machine running. As long as the reports look good, who cares about the details?" Ethan rested his arm on the side of the chair, speaking slowly. "And what if I were the owner?" Marcus stopped laughing, tilted his head, then sneered. "If you were the owner, I doubt you'd show up in that beat-up Corolla." He stood, crossed his arms, and added smugly, "Let me be honest with you, Mr. Ellis. You don't need to understand the whole game. Just know your place at the bottom." In that moment, Ethan knew he had everything he needed. Not just evidence, but an unfiltered confession. And the reveal, when it came, would have to be public, unmistakable, undeniable. The evening light had just begun to dim as the showroom lights at Titan Motors shifted into a softer glow, creating a calm ambiance. But inside Ethan Roy, there was no calm. He stood tall at the customer table, slowly removing the worn baseball cap and foggy glasses, straightening the collar of his button-down shirt. With each decisive gesture, the disguise of Raymond Ellis peeled away, revealing someone entirely different, sharp, composed, and unmistakably in charge. Ethan pulled his phone from his chest pocket, tapped the internal comms icon, and spoke with commanding clarity. "This is Ethan Roy. Gather every staff member, now. We need a full floor meeting, no exceptions. That's a direct order." The silence in the showroom lasted 10 seconds before it broke into hushed gasps, stunned glances, and murmured confusion. Finance staff, sales reps, receptionists, technicians, and inventory managers all stepped away from their stations and gathered in the center of the showroom. Some looked nervous, others bewildered, no one quite understanding how the silver-haired man they had seen earlier as a customer was now commanding the room with undeniable authority. Marcus Vale emerged from his glass office, face tight with a mix of annoyance and curiosity. But the moment his eyes met Ethan's, now standing like a commander at the front line, his composure crumbled. Mr. Roy," Marcus stammered. Ethan turned toward him, eyes cold. "So now you know who I am. Good. Then help me explain to everyone here the sales strategy you've been enforcing." Without waiting for a reply, Ethan raised his phone. The recorded audio echoed loud and clear across the room. "As long as the reports look good, the boss doesn't care. I'm the one who keeps this place running." Marcus's voice, unmistakably smug. The showroom went silent. Marcus froze, trapped. Ethan scanned the crowd, his gaze sharp. Who here has been forced to apply hidden fees? Who's been shoved into dead-end shifts for refusing to fall in line? The air thickened. Then a hand rose. It was Billy. Next, Clara, the night shift receptionist. Then the service intake tech. One by one, hands appeared, trembling but resolute. Ethan nodded. "Good. Today we stop and we start again." He turned to Marcus. "You used your position to twist the culture I built from day one. Kindness, transparency, and respect for customers. You turned this place into a machine of deception, silencing employees through control and division. And worst of all, you did it thinking I'd never find out." Marcus took a shaky step back. I was just doing what everyone else does. If you fire me, this dealership will fall apart." Ethan didn't flinch, didn't raise his voice. "I'd rather lose profit than keep rot." He turned to security. "Escort him out of the showroom immediately. He is not to touch any device. Lock down the management computer and seal all office files." The two security officers nodded and moved toward Marcus, whose face had turned pale, eyes flickering with rage and helplessness. As he was escorted out, Ethan continued. "Effective immediately, all pending vehicle contracts are frozen. Every transaction from the past 6 months will be audited. Any employee with information or documents, or who wants to speak truthfully, report directly to internal compliance. Anyone who hides the truth will face immediate consequences, both disciplinary and legal." No one in the showroom said a word. Ethan took a step back, his tone softening, his voice calm. "I didn't come here to hunt people down. I came to save something. Integrity in business. And I believe many of you still have it." From the back of the group, a young technician stepped forward. Then a receptionist, tears in her eyes, joined him. In that moment, Titan Motors was no longer just a car dealership. It became a place starting over. Ethan exhaled quietly. The reckoning was complete. And now, it was time to rebuild. 1 week later, the Titan Motors showroom was filled with balloons and live music, the first customer appreciation day since the overhaul. Ethan stood beside a small guest table, dressed in a simple button-down shirt, chatting as he signed each baseball cap bearing the company's new motto. Transparency, integrity, Titan. From across the room, Gerald Patterson walked in with his 3 children, their laughter echoing down the showroom floor. Billy ran up to greet him, handing him the keys to a brand new Ford F-150, priced exactly at $32,000, just as originally promised. Ethan approached and shook Gerald's hand. "We got it wrong," he said, "but we won't let that wrong happen again." Gerald's voice caught in his throat. "Thank you. My daughter just got her scholarship letter, and because of you, I didn't have to choose between a truck and her dream." Ethan placed a hand on his shoulder. "Not because of me. Because you stood up when you were treated unfairly. From now on, customers won't have to beg for respect. They'll receive it by default." In the months that followed, Titan Motors transformed. Digital pricing boards went up. Contracts became fully transparent. Every employee was retrained under a new no hidden fees policy. Ethan appointed Billy as head of the Customer Justice Department and invited Josh back as Director of Ethics Compliance. Every new hire was required to complete a trust training session, not through slides, but through the real stories of customers who had once been deceived. On the main wall of the showroom, where framed sales charts once hung, now stood a large sign that read, "Trust isn't sold in a package. It has to be built every day." From the back of the room, Ethan stood quietly with a cup of coffee in hand, smiling softly. The lights in the showroom weren't just bright, they were shining from within. And this time, the system was rebuilt by the hands of those who had once said, "That's not right," even when they had no power to change anything. Until now. A system can be built with strategy, but it can only be sustained through ethics. In today's business landscape, technology can replace many things, but not integrity. Ethan Roy didn't need a boardroom meeting to reset his company's culture. He only needed 1 day in disguise, 1 uncompromising heart, and 1 timely sentence. Because trust is not a tool, it is the most valuable capital any brand can own. If you believe that ethics are the true foundation for lasting success, like this video. Subscribe so you never miss real stories of courage and transformation. And don't forget to leave a comment with the phrase, "Choose transparency," because when the truth is honored, trust will return.